Welcome to the GridML training videos. In this video, I'm going to show you step by step how to use GridML to view and search the MISMO ILAD schema. So let's get started. First, I'm going to bring up the browser screen and I'm going to type in gridml.com. And before I get into the details of viewing and searching, I want to show you the resources tab on the GridML website. If you haven't seen it already, it has several articles related to ILAD, and each of them go into different aspects of the ILAD specification. But one thing I wanted to point out was on the first article, there's a diagram that gives you a good overview of the content of the MISMO ILAD schema. The main content of the schema is based on MISMO 3.4 reference model. But ILAD also includes extensions for ULAD, DU, LPA, and the Fannie Mae 3.2 flat file. And this article goes into more detail about it. And the reason this is significant is because the ILAD schema is also arranged in this way with extensions for ILAD, DU, LPA, and the Fannie Mae flat file. So let's go into GridML. I'm going to click the user sign in to go into GridML, and GridML is going to load any active schemas that we have, and the active schema we have right now is the MISMO ILAD schema, which we had downloaded from the MISMO website in an earlier training video. So one of the things I wanted to show you is I'm going to go into search, and remembering that diagram that we saw just a minute ago, if I type in ULAD followed by colon, what GridML will do is we'll bring up a list of the ULAD extensions. So any letters followed by a colon is called in XML language, if you want to call it that, is called a namespace prefix. So a namespace prefix, all it is just a shortcut for an identifier that of whose data it is. So in this case, we wanted to see just the ULAD data, and we can see that GridML categorizes by containers, data points, and types. Let's uncheck these boxes so we can see just the containers. So this is a list of the ULAD data containers that they have added to the MISMO ILAD schema. If we uncheck containers and put a check by data points, we can see these are the ULAD data points that were added by the ULAD, or Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac requested to be added for the ULAD specification. We can do a similar thing. We can type in LPA colon, and we'll bring up a list of the Freddie Mac LPA containers and data points. If we want to see just the containers, we can uncheck that. These are a list of the LPA data containers. If we check only data points, we can see the list of the LPA data points that are added in. And I can click on any of these, like total asset deficit amount, and it will show its locations. It's located once under assets, asset summary, extension, other, asset summary, extension, and these are LPA extensions. And then over in the far right column is if we click on the actual data point itself, total asset deficit amount, we can see that this is it's identified with its namespace prefix LPA colon total asset deficit amount followed by its Freddie Mac definition. We could go up back up to the top. We can also do the same thing for DU colon. And this brings up a list of the DU data points, containers, and so on. And the last, the other data extension that's in here is ILAD. And this contains data points that were added in by the MISMO ILAD working group, which consists of lenders and service providers who participate in that work group, and these are data points that they've added in. If we uncheck and show only the data points, remember in the diagram I mentioned that some of the data points were from the Fannie Mae 3.2 flat file. Property foreclosure account is an example, one of those data points that was a DU 3.2 flat file data point. Another one down here at the bottom is bankruptcies in last 3 years counts, and these are data points that some of the lenders and service providers that participate in the MISMO ILAD working group requested that these be added in. These data points were not part of the ULAD specification that Freddie and Fannie prepared. It was not part of the DU specific data set in Fannie Mae's new DU data set, and it was not part of the LPA data set. So these are additional data points from the old 3.2 flat file that were added in. So this gives you a quick overview of how you can use namespaces, and as I pointed out, we can pick any of these, like this bankruptcies in the last 3 years count. It shows places where it's located. If we click on parties, we can see it's in the borrower bankruptcies container. Under extensions, the bankruptcy summary extension, and then this is its definition from the Fannie Mae 3.2 specification, the flat file specification. So one of the common uses, the other thing I wanted to show about GridML, one typical use that people will have for the ILAD specification is mapping it to their own internal data format. And one format for that commonly is an Excel spreadsheet, but there's other methods also of different table formats. So this is an example where in this case, the way I would normally do this in a real world situation, I would take the existing ILAD mapping specification, which is included on the MISMO website, and here's 3 columns from that ILAD specification, or actually 4 columns: the ILAD data point name, the data point definition, the XPath, and the parent container name. And these are straight out of the ILAD specification that's published on the MISMO website. And I've picked out 3 of these data points from that specification, and I'm mapping it to a fictional lender company internal format for a fake company called Acme Lending. And I have columns for that internal data format, which is a typical use of when companies want to use a specification like ILAD. They'll want to be mapping that to whatever their internal specification is, whether it's a database or in this case it's an internal XML data exchange format. So to demonstrate that, I'm going to go back up here into GridML, and we have currently just the ILAD specification schema on here, but I'm going to go into Setup, and that's going to bring up a list of whatever repositories I have. And within my current default repository, I have a XML schema for Acme XML. I'm going to select the root element that I want to use for that, which is Acme XML. I could select any of these root elements. These top 2 are for imaginary loan products that this company has. But let's go back up into View. And now we'll see that there's 2 tabs, one for the ILAD schema and one for Acme XML. And this is the Acme XML data format. Their format is a slimmed down version of the MISMO format. It only includes the data points and data structures that Acme uses, but it also includes some data structures that are specific to Acme that are not part of the MISMO standard. So it's a customized data exchange format that this imaginary lending company Acme has. So let's show how we would use that in relation with this spreadsheet. I'm going to bring up my spreadsheet again. The first data point I want to map is property structure built year. I'm going to click on that cell and say copy it. I'm going to go into search and I'm going to paste property structure built year, and notice it found it in 2 locations in the ILAD schema, but it also searched simultaneously in an Acme XML and found it in 1 location there. So when I click on that, it shows me the locations. In Acme, it's located in this subject property detail structure. And the first thing I wanted to do is I wanted to grab the XPath for the container where it's located. When I click on that, notice it fills in that full XPath down here, and all this is just a repeat of this structure up here, but put in an XPath format. So Acme XML, loan file, subject property detail, and that's just repeated in here, separated by slashes, which is the XPath format. I'm going to click on this button to say copy full XPath. Go back to my structure here, click on this cell and click paste, and there it's pasted in the that XPath name. Next I'm going to go grab the data point, and GridML allows me to get the data point and its definition in 1 step. So I'm going to click on the property structure built year, and there's a checkbox in here that says include definition. And when I say copy the name here, it's going to copy this name here plus the definition for that name that was included within the Acme XML schema. So let's go back to my spreadsheet. I'm going to click on that cell and click paste, and when I do that, it pastes both the element name and its definition. So let's grab the next one, construction status type. I'm going to say copy. I'm going to go back up here and hit paste. Construction status type, it found 2 matches in Acme XML. Again, it's in the loan file under subject property detail. Notice it's the same XPath as before, so I have 2 options. I can either just say, I can uncheck this and just say copy XPath and come over here, and I can just paste that in there. I'm going to go back and get the definition. I'm going to click on construction status type, say include the definition, and copy the name. Go back to my spreadsheet, right click on that cell and click paste, and paste in the name and the definition. On this next one, the name I want to grab here is property foreclosure count. I'm going to say copy property foreclosure count, and notice on here it's also in subject property detail. The reason I didn't select the full name, because notice if I go back to the ILAD tab on here, notice the full name in ILAD is ILAD : property foreclosure count, because it includes the namespace, because within the ILAD MISMO specification, this property foreclosure count is not part of the MISMO specification. It's part of the ILAD extension data that was added in. But Acme XML, in their structure, they have it as just part of their default namespace, which is shown over here, which is gridml.com schemas Acme XML. So let's grab the container name that it's in. I'm going to uncheck because I don't want the definition for the container, which is this big thing up here. I only want the XPath name. So I'm going to grab that, go back to my worksheet, go up here and hit paste. Last item, I'm going to grab the data point name and its definition and say copy name. Go back to my spreadsheet, right click, click paste, and there I pasted in. And that's an example that I've given just of doing a data mapping exercise using GridML and doing it with the MISMO ILAD specification. That's it for this video. I hope it was useful for you.